Welcome to another edition of Carnivore Radio. I'm your host, Jeff Sherman, along with Dr. Eric Lopkin. Again, an eventful week, a lot of things going on, a lot of introspection, maybe not in mainstream media, but maybe buyer's remorse with many that voted for this administration. But we do have some interesting things going on. We have Michelle Obama. Basically, there's talk that she's considering a 2024 run. Your view, Dr. Lopkin?
I think it's absolutely ridiculous that they would even consider her. The Obama administration, now I'm not talking about Obama himself or Michelle, I'm talking about all the little people that worked behind the scenes, are the same people who are working for the Biden administration.
True.
So, I mean, having her primary Biden and having her run, basically it's putting a new figurehead on the same system. There wouldn't be any changes. She wouldn't be any better at this because it's still all the same people. And the progressives have already been talking about the fact that they want a progressive to primary Biden. Here's the problem with this. Yeah, Michelle Obama could pass as a progressive. A progressive can't win the nomination they can't win the general election. That's why Biden was put up in the first place, to pretend to be a centrist. More than that, the fact that they're talking about primarying a sitting president. Now, it's not unheard of, but it's only happened 3 times in recent memory. And by recent, I'm talking 50, 60 years. Every time it happens, you get the same result. The sitting president wins the nomination from his party, but loses the general.
True. We even go back to Carter with Kennedy primarying against him. That's one of the reasons he lost.
Yes,
without any question.
Same thing with George H.W. Bush.
True, and Gerald Ford. But yes, very interesting. The other thing I think about Michelle Obama, it all looks good until you shine the light on the situation. I think she would be uncovered as someone that is ideas and ideologies that are far left from the center, and really just no real experience that could get her over the hump.
Let's not forget, this is the woman who, when her husband ran for president, she said it was the first time she was ever proud of America. When Hillary ran for president, she said, well, if you don't vote for Hillary and you're a woman, you're not being true to yourself. Well, remember, Hillary ran against her husband, so apparently she wasn't being true to herself, supporting her husband.
Yeah, we both agree. Left to the light of introspection, she goes nowhere. It all looks good, at the beginning, but it's like, an old rock group going to reunite, and then when you see them in concert, you're like, oh God, thank God they disbanded 20 years ago.
It's like going to see the Rolling Stones in concert. The time has passed and enough is enough.
There you go. I agree 100% with that. Now, AOC, a true genius, again, do as I say, not as I do, socialist, was going to some party in Florida, I believe it was Miami, without her mask. And again, she was the big mask czar, and not officially, but saying everyone needs to be a mask, blah, blah, blah. There she is partying in a big crowd without a mask. And then she had the audacity, talk about being grandiose in your view of yourself. She goes, all these Republicans that criticize me, deep down, they just want to date me. And I would say this one thing, that I'm conservative, and now when I criticize her, it's not any underlying desire to date her. Just want to make that clear.
No, yeah, I mean, that has to be the most narcissistic comment I've ever heard. The criticism against her is well founded because she has actually been found to be the least effective member of Congress. She has never gotten a bill out of committee. She has lost every major issue that she has fought for on the House floor. She also had the nerve to criticize Governor DeSantis for not being visible in public. Now, for those of you who don't know where Governor DeSantis has been, he has been at his wife's side as she undergoes cancer treatments. So she's saying, you know, all of these people want to date her, and then she criticizes DeSantis. No, this is a narcissistic airhead who is so full of herself, she does not understand how government works. This is why she keeps yelling for Biden to use executive orders on things that he cannot write an executive order on. She does not understand why things are like they are. This is why she's one of these pushing for the Senate filibuster to go away. Because as far as she's concerned, well, the only reason for the filibuster is to keep her from getting her way. This is a narcissistic little girl playing congresswoman. And quite frankly, she just needs to go away.
What does it say about our elected officials? This is a person that graduated college. God knows what her degree was in.
Her degree was in economics.
Oh God, that's.
I'm not even kidding.
No, that's a bad joke. I know it's true actually because I do recall that. BU, whoever is in charge of the economics department should have their title revoked. That's ridiculous. But anyway,
between her degree and the school pushing critical race theory, Boston University needs to get its accreditation revoked.
Well, it was never the icon. Well, I was really nice because I didn't bring it up. It was never the pinnacle of learning in Boston. We'll just leave it at that. It was, you got to check. Thank you very much. Welcome to the university. Am I not correct?
Yes, you are.
Thank you very much. So Antonio Brown, talk about self-implosions, had everything going for him, was resurrected by a Super Bowl team, and couldn't keep his shit together, could he?
No, he couldn't. And, I can't help but notice Tom Brady's reaction to this. He comes out and goes, well, I hope he gets the help he needs. And it's all, there's obviously something under the surface. We don't know that there's any problem under the surface. He could just be a petulant child.
I love that because that's actually true, Dr. Lopkin, and that's why you're the doctor. Because everything's couched in, someone shits on their own career or screws up a marriage or does something to no, maybe they're just a friggin' idiot. It's just, you don't need Sigmund Freud to figure this out. The guy's probably not all that bright and has a hair-triggered temper. He was insulated his whole life because he's excellent at what he does in terms, not school, by the way, but about catching footballs. And someone says, get in the game, and he freaks out. I mean, I don't think your father or my father or anyone else had the option. Like my father had to show up to work every day. Didn't make his difference. His boss might have looked at him the wrong way. He didn't have the option to walk out and say, oh, well, screw you. So
exactly. Across the country, there are people who are dealing with serious issues every day at work, every day in their lives. And you know what? They hold it together. And it's time we hold these celebrities to the same standard.
Agreed. And, the whole, and elaborating a little bit about this whole situation, talk about priorities. Our educational system, let's just say needs some improvement. We won't have to, and we don't have to elaborate any further. We spend probably more on the NFL than we do on education. I'm just kidding, but it's like all these $100 million contracts. I mean, are you kidding? What are you smoking? Back in the day, back even in the '70s, these guys made like 100,000. That was a lot, and they deserved it. You deserve. I think you deserve $1 million to play football. I mean, you are in the 0.05% of athleticism. 20 million, 100 million. And by the way, let me throw something at you. If I'm 25 years old and I'm getting paid $100 million, do I really care if I win the Super Bowl? I mean, yeah, it kind of would be nice, but I'm not going to go home and cry about it. I'm going to say, okay, check, please.
See, that you hit on something, though, that these are essentially young people who have been kowtowed to and sheltered. And I've had some conversations with David Gamble. For our listeners who don't know who David Gamble is, David Gamble was on the Super Bowl Denver Broncos, the Super Bowl winning Denver Broncos. And he says it's amazing how many of the players don't know how to take care of their money. They're not ready to do anything else. And it's so important that these guys actually do this. This is why I think it's absolutely ridiculous that the NCAA is now allowing students to get paid for endorsements. Their pay should be an education. They're getting scholarships. They should be taking their education seriously. And maybe if the NFL actually cared about these folks, they'd spend the money to create a farm team like the minor leagues in Major League Baseball and stop pulling people out of college before they're ready to graduate.
100%, but that would mean that the greed, and I love that. That is an excellent point, because all this crap about, you go on look at the sidelines, we're all in this together, end racism, all this. If you really cared about, because the majority of people playing in the NFL are minorities, if you really cared about them, you would discourage. You might even have a rule. You have to complete your degree, possibly. But the NFL is so greedy, even though they're making billions upon billions, that to start a farm system would mean they'd actually have to take money out of their own coffers. So they'd rather hijack young kids out of college for their own benefit. They play 3 to 4 years, and when the gig's up, they're bankrupt, and that's a fact.
Yes, the rate of bankruptcy among former athletes is tremendous because they're not taught how to manage their money. Many of them are taken advantage of by their own managers, not to mention the hangers-on that they all seem to, be shelling out money for. These folks need to be educated before they should ever take the field.
Well, that's not in the NFL's best interest. To talk about being disingenuous, we can go into that in another edition. Marjorie Taylor Greene, banned from Twitter. I might not agree with everything she said, but that's really scary. Banned from Twitter, but you have Islamic extremists not. Could you please explain that to me, Dr. Lopkin? And is there not an upcoming war on social media?
There is going to be a reckoning on all of this. She was pulled because she's a conservative. This has been the mission of Twitter. And in fact, I'm not sure if it was the same day or it was within a few days, the account was canceled for a children's book publisher because they published a biography of, actually it was 3 biographies of Ronald Reagan and other conservative leaders. Now, these were biographies. There was no judgment one way or another. It was just, hey, kids, These are biographies of these people. Twitter pulled their ads, pulled their account, got
May,
lambasted in the media, and gave the account back. But when they unbanned the account, they didn't tell the publisher. The publisher found out about it by watching Fox News.
okay, only Fox. I'm sure it wasn't on CNN. And let me ask you a little question here. Are we not drifting towards the Mao years of the Cultural Revolution? People out there might think that's a little extreme. I really don't. It's a technological cultural revolution without the guns, but it's still a cultural revolution by liberal intelligentsia and big tech.
Yeah, we are seeing a reckoning on all of this. We have seen the rise of smaller social networks. The newest one just came out a few days ago called Getter. Conservative pundits are flocking to these sites. There are a
But it brings
number.
up a bigger issue. How can you be a public company with private aspirations? I'm talking politically, obviously.
Well, that's the problem, is that a public company can set any rules they want for their customers. We saw that in the Supreme Court a few years ago. The case of the baker that did not want to make a cake for a gay wedding. Twitter, Facebook, they actually do have, well, Facebook does not have the right to do this, Twitter does. The difference being Facebook has been working with the Biden administration, making them an agent of the government. The government does not have the right to squash free speech, but a private company does. This is starting to turn around, though, because you're seeing these conservative voices go to these newer sites like Getter, like Rumble, which is a video site, basically like YouTube. But you're seeing these people who are reaching millions going to these smaller sites.
And I think
These
you
are
bring up that's a quintessential point, is that I know, Zucker and all these other people, they look like they're all philanthropic. No, they're as greedy as the robber barons of the turn of the last century. When you deny them revenue, then they'll start acting appropriately. Am I not correct?
And that's it. The folks that are
They're more
moving to
greedy,
these
actually.
new platforms, folks like Ben Shapiro, folks like Tim Pool, these are guys that routinely on a daily basis get more viewers to their videos than CNN does.
Well,
So
wait a
you
second. Carnivore Radio's getting close to that. My God. Hello. I mean, I knew someone that did pantomimes in New York City, and their viewership was really close to Don Lemon.
Well, but these guys get millions of views every day. And when they leave platforms like YouTube, YouTube loses all of those users. So you're going to see they're not going to be able to deliver the advertising that their advertisers want. This is how you have to stop Twitter and Facebook from doing this, is you have to hit them in the wallet.
Of course, exactly. Now, talking about intelligentsia, Mayor Lightfoot, I'm sure I'd love to look at her college transcripts if she went to a college, a true genius of the universe, 31 shot during New Year's. It's essentially, it's getting to the point that you may have, and I know that this is as a joke, but it's actually in retrospect not all that funny. You might have a better chance in Vietnam than in South Chicago on a weekend. No, it's about equal.
Yeah, Chicago this past year broke all records for murders, and this is because Lightfoot defunded the police. They have a prosecutor that won't bring charges against
By
people.
Soros.
Yep. And you are seeing this across the country. Lightfoot is being ridiculed by her own cops. She's standing out as, this is what happens with liberal policy. She very well may be featured in tons of Republican ads come the midterm elections saying this is the stuff that has to be stopped. We
Well,
are
thinking about
seeing
things
more
that
and
have
more
to be
violence.
stopped, she also says she won't take a question from a white reporter. If
Right,
that was
yes.
a Republican, how fast would you be on your ass?
No, she is a racist. She will only work with African American or minority reporters. She will not take questions from anyone else. She stated this plainly. That's the definition of racism.
Hello.
The fact, people don't want to, oh, well, it's against whites. It's not racist. No. That's still racism.
That's still
Because
racist.
she is discriminating against a specific race. And it's very stupid because there are tons of non-African American reporters who now they're not getting their questions answered. So they're not going to back her up. They're not going, the liberal media has been covering for Democrats for decades, and she's telling them, no, I'm not speaking to you. Guess what? You don't have their back. They're not going to have yours.
Well, by the way, her application for Mensa it was lost. I don't know how it was lost, but I'm sure they're trying to dig it out. Then we have the voting rights filibuster. Looks like Manchin was wavering, but I don't think he will. Again, it's Schumer calling a vote that's not going to happen. I mean, the vote will happen, but it's going nowhere.
Yeah, the voting rights is not the voting rights bill is not going to even come up for a vote because it's not going to get past the filibuster. What Schumer is trying to do is get Manchin to vote to remove the filibuster for
Which
this.
he will not.
Manchin has already said he's not going to vote to remove the filibuster. Sinema has said she is not going to vote to remove the filibuster. So
what's wrong with Schumer besides being an arrogant piece of shit? What's wrong with him?
Ironically, if you take a look through the video archives, you find a very impassioned Chuck Schumer talking about why the filibuster needs to be kept and how removing it would damage the Senate. And now he's flipped on that. Why? Because he's kowtowing to the radical left because he is afraid of AOC's primarying him.
A true man of principle, right up there with Churchill, without any question. So I think that's going nowhere. Thank God, because it's really a way. Because something, I'd have to say that the Democratic Party and liberals have gone so far off the reservation that I believe everything they do has a motive. Global warming, do I think global warming is real? Yes. But when they get a hold of something, of course they're doing it for their own benefit. Voting rights, there's the things but they're doing it for their own benefit. There's nothing a liberal Democrat does for the good of America anymore. That train left the station years ago.
Here's the thing. I mean, yes, they're clearly trying to grab power. That's why they've been trying to change the rules, because the rules are actually keeping them at bay, because that's what our founding fathers had in mind. They don't want a small minority of people bullying their way into controlling the country. So they're trying to remove the filibuster. The filibuster was put in place by our founding fathers to make sure that every state has a say in how the government is run, not just highly populated states. They were trying to push through a way to pack the Supreme Court. Fortunately, that's fallen by the wayside. But the way you can tell that they don't actually care about the people they're claiming to is by looking at what they're trying to do. Case in point, there has been a big push. Anytime you hear anything about Build Back Better, the issue that the left always brings up, like, well, people love this because we want to expand Medicare benefits. Okay, now expanded Medicare benefits would benefit seniors. It's a good thing for them. However, you'll notice that they have not done anything to try to shore up Social Security, which is running out of money. They would rather start their own programs that they can control rather than fixing the programs that are starting to fail now and actually benefiting people.
No question about it. And it goes all about power, because there are a lot of them in the heart of the hearts are Leninskyites, and it's all about power and control. And you're right. Even during the schlock impeachment hearings, you had the same people that were going against Trump talking exactly the opposite during Clinton. But that's another issue. So we have Biden, which I have to say, even in my old age, I do have a good sense of humor. And I think for me, he is the gift that keeps on giving. He is better than Saturday Night Live. I mean, we're better than Saturday Night Live. I mean, that's a pretty low bar. But no, Biden, it's just hysterical. He literally said that 2020 may be a good year, or there's no reason to think it. Yeah, well, no, it's 2022, Joe. And to that point, his approval now 56 or over 56% of people think he's doing a horrifically bad job. And he's so out of touch. I don't know if you saw this, but during a Christmas address or possibly a New Year's address, who really cares? Then he was kind of a jerk. Got on the conversation, and when they were closing, said, "Let's go Biden." And Joe Biden literally said, "Yeah, let's go Joe Biden," or "Let's go Brandon." Sorry, let's go Brandon.
Let's step back and go over what actually happened. Yes, he was on a Christmas call to the troops. No, I'm sorry, it wasn't the troop call that this happened on. He was on a call to NORAD.
It
was
right.
Christmas.
And
it was Christmas
Eve.
Right. It was Christmas Eve. And this is a call that's been made every year about tracking Santa Claus and where he is. And people can call in to this and talk to the president. And one of the callers, a man from Oregon, called in, and at the end of his conversation, he went, "Yeah, Merry Christmas, let's go Brandon." And Biden, without missing a beat, said, "Yes, let's go Brandon," completely unaware of what he was saying.
Now, does that scare you or not? Number one, it tells me he just gets brought out for events, reads the no one's briefing him. No, he doesn't watch the news. I don't think he has any idea what the hell is going on. And that was indicated by that. Let's go, Brandon.
Yeah, it does look like he is completely unaware of what is going on. Now, to be fair, his entire administration seems pretty disconnected from reality. I mean, my favorite was inflation, because when inflation hit, they went, "Oh, no, there's no inflation." Then they went, "Oh, inflation is transitory." And then they went, "Well, yes, we have inflation, but it'll be gone soon." And that now it's, "Oh, we're going to have inflation for at least the next year." Now they finally had to say, "Yes, no, we have nothing we can do about it." And they've done this over and over again with Afghanistan. "Oh, everybody who wanted to get out is out." "Oh, well, there were a couple of people there. We pulled out." Now it turns out there's hundreds and hundreds of people still there that they had to say, "Oh, yes, we left hundreds of people there, and we don't know how we're getting them out. We're relying on the Taliban."
To put that in perspective, though, in a serious note, having grown up or whatever during the Iran hostage crisis, there was less than 50 hostages, and that was network news for over a year. Go watch CNN and tell me if they even mention the people left behind. God knows what's going to happen to them if they had any power or influence on things, and it's an afterthought. It is disgusting, and it shows how the mainstream media is lockstep with this administration and liberal Democrats, and they have literally and figuratively blood on their hands for, first of all, getting this moron elected, never asking him one question besides what kind of ice cream do you like, and also not following up on this.
Yeah, it is absolutely unconscionable that the mainstream media has not followed up on what's going on in Afghanistan. And yes, to put it in perspective, when you mentioned the Iran hostage situation, ABC created the show Nightline, which is still on, just to give a nightly update on what was going on with the hostage situation.
But isn't that sad, Dr. Lockman? It's more than sad. It's pathetic, and it threatens our democracy, because you had, I think that's not even true. I was going to say something, but it's not true. You had a media that was left of center, but knew and took their responsibility as America came first, then their ideology. That is completely gone.
It is completely gone, but the problem is so much deeper, especially with CNN. Because if you take a look at what CNN is going through now, you have two news producers who have pedophile charges against them. You've got Don Lemon, who is being charged with sexual assault. You had Chris Cuomo. I mean, these are not good people who were led astray, and maybe they don't agree with people, with us politically. These are horrible people who are guilty of terrible crimes, and yet they are considered. They're giving information to America, and they're standing up for what they believe in. Great, they're standing up for pedophiles. Okay,
yeah,
these guys need to be fired and a clean sweep of the network.
And I still am shocked that Zucker has a job, completely incompetent. And speaking of incompetency, when you think of CNN,
the rumors are on Zucker that he's not going to have a job for much longer.
Good, and Bob, deservingly so. Asta Nuega. And by the way, what I heard was their New Year's coverage with Don Lemon and something Cohn and Anderson was literally unwatchable. In fact, there was criticism that they were actually drinking. I mean, they are news anchors. You don't start doing shots.
Oh, well, I didn't watch, so I don't know if they were drinking or not.
I watched a little bit.
There was one thing that came out after it was absolutely fantastic, was Andy Cohen on the CNN New Year's was openly criticizing de Blasio, saying how he destroyed New York City, and Anderson Cooper tried to stop him from saying it.
Oh, surprise, surprise. Anderson Cooper, the great arbitrator of free news. Yes, it's probably after Cohn did his 6 shots. Now we're moving on to January 6th, increasingly looking like a political hatchet job. Not that it wasn't to begin with. I don't think it's going to have the impact that Nancy Pelosi thought it would.
No, it's not. They've actually, they are putting all of their eggs into this basket.
So
they
want media,
January. Yes, they want January 6th to be what keeps the Republicans out of office in 2022. Yes. The problem is they don't have the facts they think they do. The committee is basically the same committee that kept saying, oh, Trump colluded with Russia. Oh, it doesn't matter that the Mueller report found that he didn't. He did. You've got Adam Schiff, again, doing the media tour, lying about the evidence. And now Adam Schiff was found to have actually manipulated the evidence. He changed the texts that were submitted in evidence to get subpoenas. So they are manipulating the evidence, falsifying them, because what the text was a long text talking about Mike Pence's responsibility from an attorney, what his responsibilities would have been regarding the election just prior to January 6th. And Schiff cut most of the text out to make it look like Mike Pence was being told to overturn the election, which is not what the text was about. It was about the vice president's responsibility legally, what he has to and cannot do.
Well, the whole thing about Schiff, he comes from California, highly educated district. How do these people vote for such a moron? And a disingenuous moron who is self-serving. The guy in high school was a dweeb, and now he's a rock star, and he's loving every minute of it. And that's really the basis of it. And the other thing about it is that now Nancy Pelosi wants to dismiss any Republican that even supported this so-called insurrection. Again, everything with the Democrats and liberalism is all politics and power.
And that's all it is. They're trying to hold on to the little power they have. For some reason, they thought that 2020 gave the Democrats a massive mandate. And the fact is, you got a 50-50 split in the Senate. In the House, they actually lost seats in 2020. So they've only got, I think it's a 6-seat majority. They're about to lose both houses in November. So they are desperate to hold on to power, and they don't care if they have to change the rules and falsify elections and commit election fraud to do it.
No question. And closing on our great leadership in the Democratic Party, the second in command, Kamala, and wow. You know, it's not just partisanship, because obviously I'm a conservative, but the more you see her, the more I shake my head. Number one, how did she ever get, and I know we don't have to go into why, I know the reason why, because you checked the boxes. How did she ever become vice president? But how did she even get to be, she is not a particularly bright person. No, and she has no ability. She's also lazy because she never researches anything. She knows she's going to get asked certain questions, and all she does is what she always does: flirt, laugh, giggle. It got her where she is for 40 years, so why not just continue it? Well, and by the way, ratings approaching 20%.
Yes. That's the basic problem with her is most politicians start at a grassroots level, they start at a local level, and they have to learn to deal with people. They have to learn how to relate to their constituents. Harris never had this. The head of the California Democratic Party has said publicly that he gave her positions, both the Senate and the district attorney positions, because he was sleeping with her. She never ran real campaigns, so she never had to create a bond with the voters. And then, she didn't even do well enough in the presidential race to make it to the first primary.
She didn't even do well in California.
Right. They put her in, and now it's her own people who are saying, yeah, she's abusive, she doesn't work well with others, she's lazy, she refuses to do her homework, she never reads the briefings. And again, these are not conservative
and also
critics
plays the race card, by the way. Also
of
plays
course.
The race card, because it's not that she's lazy, maybe not particularly bright, but it's all because she's a woman and she's African. Okay, yeah. No, show up to work, and then it might be a different story.
Right. I mean, she is the border czar. And she went down to Guatemala, and the president of Guatemala has publicly said he hasn't heard from her since. She has never gone down to the border. I know she made a big show of going down to Texas, but the Texas governor was very quick to point out that where she went in Texas was as far from the border as Philadelphia is from Atlanta.
Beautiful. Well, certainly a lot to ponder, and it's going to be a great as we're moving into the new year, Dr. Lopkin, and our listeners can access Carnivore Radio in many spots. Correct?
Absolutely. You can catch us each episode at xvadio.com/podcasts. You can also find us at the Carnivore Radio website, as well as the Apple Podcast app, Google Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, Amazon Music, Audible. And over the next couple of days, you will see the new Xvadio Network YouTube channel. So you can catch us there as well.
Great. Thank you very much, Dr. Lockman, and thank our listeners.
We'll see you next time.